There is something in you that has never fully fit into this world. Even when everything seems to work on the outside, inside there is a sense of incompleteness. It is not ingratitude nor confusion. It is perception. A part of your essence recognizes that life is not just about automatic routines, others' expectations, and days that repeat without deep meaning. The chosen ones carry this feeling from an early age. A silent consciousness observes, questions, and feels that there is something greater behind what has been taught. You learn rules, set paths, and impose limits, but something in you never accepts this as an absolute truth. This restlessness is not weakness. It is memory trying to emerge. Over time, many learn to ignore this inner voice. They learn to adapt, to silence it, to fit in. But the chosen ones cannot completely erase this calling. It returns in moments of silence, in unexpected crises, in striking dreams, in questions that won't go away. It is the essence asking for space to exist with truth. This content was not created to convince anyone. It exists to touch those who already feel. It brings no empty promises or ready-made answers. It points to something you already know, even if you have never put it into words. The remembrance does not come from the outside. It happens when you stop and listen carefully. My name is George, and if this message made sense to you, it is because something inside of you recognized it. I invite you to follow the channel, accompany the upcoming content, and walk with us on this journey of consciousness and remembrance. Here, we speak to those who feel they were born for more than just surviving. Chosen ones, there is a silent discomfort that accompanies many of you from an early age. No matter how much life may seem organized on the outside, something inside observes everything as if it were out of place. You fulfill obligations, respond to expectations, follow predictable paths, but you feel that you are merely playing a role that does not express your full truth. This feeling is not ingratitude nor rebellion. It is perception. Your essence recognizes that there is more than what has been presented as normal life. While many adapt easily, you feel an emptiness that is hard to name. It is not the lack of things, but the lack of meaning. Something in you knows you were not born to live in automatic mode. Over time, this feeling can intensify. At times, it arises as restlessness. At other times, as deep fatigue, even without physical effort. You look around and realize that the world works, but it does not align with what you feel inside. This creates a constant estrangement between who you are and who you appear to be. The chosen ones tend to notice this difference while they are still young. From an early age, they feel they think differently, feel differently, observe beyond the obvious. They often try to adjust so as not to stand out. They try to convince themselves that this feeling will pass. But it returns whenever you silence yourself and listen carefully. This feeling arises when the soul begins to move. It is not a problem to be solved. It is a sign. An internal warning that the identity built does not fully correspond to your essence. Common life begins to seem small, not because it is wrong, but because it cannot contain all that you are. You were not born just to repeat the same days. You did not come just to fulfill functions, pay bills, and wait for time to pass. There is something deeper trying to emerge, asking for space, asking for expression. When this happens, external comfort no longer compensates for the internal discomfort. Many try to ignore this call. They occupy themselves too much, distract themselves, overload themselves. But the feeling does not disappear. It transforms. Sometimes it turns into anxiety. Sometimes it turns into sadness with no apparent cause. Other times it becomes a strong desire to change everything, even without knowing exactly what. The chosen ones cannot live disconnected for long. Something inside demands coherence. It demands truth. It demands alignment. No matter how much they try to adapt, the essence always calls them back. Not with words, but with sensations that will not be quieted. This discomfort is not weakness. It is a sign of consciousness. It is the beginning of remembrance. Your soul recognizes that there is something beyond the surface and begins to push you out of what is comfortable but empty. Not to destroy your life, but to make it true. When you understand this, the feeling changes its meaning. It stops being a burden and becomes a guide. You begin to observe this discomfort with more respect. It does not want to confuse you. It wants to remind you of who you are before you learned who you should be. Throughout life, you learned to adapt to survive. You learned what was acceptable, what had to be hidden, what needed to be adjusted to fit. You learned to control feelings, ignore intuitions, and follow paths considered safe. This learning was not imposed out of malice, but by repetition. Little by little, your perception was shaped. You learned to doubt yourself before trusting. You learned to listen more to what is outside than to what is inside. Intuition was set aside, replaced by rules, opinions, and expectations. This process created a silent distance from your essence. The chosen ones feel this distance more intensely. Even without understanding the reason, they realize that something essential was forgotten along the way. It was not torn away, only asleep. The soul never loses what it is. It only adapts to the environment to continue existing. This forgetfulness was not punishment. It was part of the human experience. To live limitation, it was necessary to forget expansion. To recognize your own strength, it was necessary to go through moments of fragility. None of this was in vain. Each phase played a role in the process of consciousness maturation. Forgetfulness allowed you to learn what it is like to live without remembering everything. You learned to fall, get up, insist, and resist. You learned to miss something you could not explain. This feeling of lack is what later awakens the search for meaning. Nothing that you are has been erased. Your gifts, your sensitivity, your perception remain intact, even if muffled. They await the moment when you are ready to recognize them again, now with more maturity and discernment. The chosen ones do not awaken early because they need to. They awaken when they can sustain the truth without losing themselves in it. Forgetfulness prepared you for this. It created foundation, created structure, created experience. Now remembrance begins to find space. When you understand that forgetting was part of the path, guilt disappears. You stop judging yourself for having drifted from yourself. You realize you were living what you needed to live to get here with more awareness. Remembrance does not happen all at once. It comes in layers, in subtle perceptions, in internal changes that alter your way of seeing the world. You begin to recognize yourself in the details, in the choices, in the boundaries you begin to respect. Forgetfulness has played its role. Now, remembrance begins to emerge, not to transform you into someone different, but to return you to yourself. What was asleep begins to move, and when this happens, there is no going back to the previous state. When the essence begins to awaken, life starts sending subtle, yet persistent signals. Thoughts about purpose arise without warning. Questions appear in ordinary moments. You are not seeking something specific, but you feel that something is trying to reveal itself. This movement does not come from the mind. It comes from a deeper place. Dreams become different. They are not confusing or forgettable. They stay in memory upon waking, carrying real emotions. Sometimes they seem more vivid than the daily routine itself. Unfamiliar places sound familiar. People you've never seen before evoke recognition. These dreams do not ask for immediate interpretation. They ask for attention. The chosen ones perceive these signs more clearly because they are attentive to what they feel. It is not about being special, but about being sensitive. Something inside you recognizes patterns before the mind can explain. This perception does not shout. It whispers, waiting for you to slow down to listen. Unexpected encounters start to have weight. Simple conversations bring answers you didn't know you needed. People appear at the right moment, saying exactly what touches something within. It is not magic or coincidence. It is alignment between your inner state and the movement of life. The so-called coincidences start to repeat themselves. Similar situations arise in cycles. Numbers, themes, names, stories appear more than once. When this happens, your soul is reinforcing a message, not to impress, but to guide. Repetition is a way of calling your attention. These signs do not require belief. They happen regardless of that. What changes is the way you respond. Ignoring them keeps everything the same. Observing them creates openness. The chosen ones do not try to control these signs. They simply recognize that there is an intelligence organizing the path. Over time, you realize that these signs appear more when you are in internal silence. When you are not reacting automatically. When you listen more than respond. The soul does not speak amidst the noise. It expresses itself when there is space. Memory does not return abruptly. It reveals itself gradually, in layers. Each sign brings a subtle reminder of who you are beyond the roles you play. These are not memories of the common past, but sensations of deep identity. The chosen ones learn to respect this process. They do not try to rush or explain everything. They know that remembrance needs to mature. The more you trust and observe, the clearer the communication becomes. The awakening of memory does not take you out of the world. It changes the way you live in it. You begin to walk with more attention, realizing that nothing is random when you are present. Many chosen ones carry a constant feeling of displacement. Even in familiar environments, something seems out of place. You observe the people around you and realize that you care about different things. What excites most people does not touch you in the same way. This is not rejection. It is deep perception. You try to fit in, but feel like something is always missing or out of place. Shallow conversations tire you. Empty routines weigh on you. Not because they are wrong, but because they do not resonate with what your soul seeks. You feel the need for meaning, not just occupation. This feeling is not arrogance or isolation, it is sensitivity. Your soul remembers a broader state of existence, where everything had connection. That is why superficiality bothers you, not out of judgment, but out of contrast with what you feel is true. The chosen ones often ask themselves why they seem to see beyond, why they feel so much, why they cannot be satisfied with little meaning. These questions arise because their consciousness refuses to live only on the surface of the human experience. This displacement can generate loneliness, even when surrounded by people. You realize that you cannot always share what you feel, not because of a lack of words, but because of a difference in depth. This hurts, but it also teaches you to respect yourself more. The feeling of not belonging does not indicate rejection of the world. It indicates that you were not only meant to adapt, you came to bring something that is not yet fully present. The chosen ones carry this restlessness because they feel there is something to be lived more truthfully. Over time, you learn that you do not need to force belonging. Belonging to yourself becomes more important. When this happens, loneliness changes its form. It stops being abandonment and becomes a space of clarity. You begin to choose more carefully where you place your energy. environments, people, and activities are now filtered by what nourishes your essence, not by exclusion, but by alignment. This displacement also prepares you to recognize others like you, people who speak the same inner language. Not many, but enough. The connection becomes deeper and less frequent, but true. The feeling of not belonging is not a flaw. It is a sign that your soul remembers that there is more. And this remembrance continues to guide you, even when the path is not yet fully clear. There are phases when everything suddenly loses its meaning. What once seemed sufficient no longer works. Routines become tiring, goals lose their shine, and motivation disappears. For many, this seems like failure. For the chosen ones, this moment is an internal warning that something needs to change deeply. Crises do not arise to destroy you. They appear when the external life no longer keeps up with the internal growth. Your essence begins to ask for space, and discomfort arises as a response. It is not punishment. It is a sign of misalignment. Something inside of you knows that it is time to move. Questions appear without invitation. You begin to doubt old choices, paths followed out of habit, commitments made without awareness. This is frightening because it takes away the ground beneath you. But this shake-up is necessary to break down structures that no longer support who you are becoming. The chosen ones go through more intense crises because they feel deeper. They cannot ignore what is out of place. The discomfort grows until it can no longer be suppressed. This pressure does not come from the outside. It comes from the soul demanding coherence between who you are and the life you lead. During the crisis, it is common to try to go back to what it was before, to seek distraction, overburden oneself, pretend everything is normal. But this only prolongs the process. The crisis asks for presence, not escape. It asks for listening, not anesthesia. When you face it, it begins to transform. Each crisis breaks an illusion. It shows where you were living on autopilot. It reveals choices made out of fear or convenience. This confrontation hurts, but it liberates. What falls during the crisis was not essential. It was just what no longer served. The chosen ones learn that the crisis is a portal, a point of transition between versions. There is no way to pass through without leaving something behind. Resisting makes the process heavier. Accepting makes it clearer. The crisis teaches you to trust the inner movement. Even when everything seems confusing, something inside remains firm, a silent sense that there is a next step, even without knowing what it is. This quiet certainty supports you during the crossing. It is the essence guiding without hurry. After the crisis, nothing returns to how it was before. Not because everything changes on the outside, but because you change on the inside. Your perception expands. What once seemed important loses strength. What was ignored gains value. Crises do not define you. They refine you. They work as portals that lead from a misaligned life to a more aligned life. When seen this way, they cease to be enemies and become allies of awakening. The remembrance of the soul does not require complex study or special formulas. It happens when you begin to listen to yourself honestly, when you stop pretending that everything is fine just to keep up appearances, when you respect the internal signals that have always been present. You do not need to transform into someone else. You need to remove layers that are not yours. Other people's expectations, inherited fears, patterns repeated without reflection. The essence was never lost. It was just covered by accumulated noise over time. The gifts you seek do not come from nowhere. They reappear when you make space, when you slow down, when you pay attention to what naturally calls you. What flows effortlessly often points to who you have always been. Recognizing is not a mental act. It is a feeling of alignment. Something makes sense inside, even without logical explanation. The chosen ones learn to trust this feeling more than external opinions. It does not shout, but it is firm. Remembrance happens in simple gestures, choosing with more truth, saying no when something does not resonate, honoring boundaries, following internal curiosities. Each small alignment removes another layer of forgetfulness. You begin to notice patterns in your own history. Repetitions that once seemed like mistakes gain meaning. Experiences that hurt reveal learning. Nothing was random. Everything contributed to the current recognition. The connection was never cut off. It was just muffled by excess external stimuli. When you reduce the noise, the essence is heard again. Not with speeches, but with silent clarity. There comes a point in the journey when seeking answers outside no longer makes much sense. Not because you have given up on understanding life, but because something inside of you has stabilized. The restlessness diminishes. The need for external confirmation weakens. You begin to realize that your own internal experience has become a reliable source of guidance. This change does not happen abruptly or dramatically. It settles in slowly, almost without announcement. It emerges in small decisions, in the way you choose to react, in the boundaries you begin to respect. You begin to treat yourself with more care. Life doesn't become perfect, but it becomes true, and this deeply changes the way you walk. The chosen ones begin to notice an internal alignment that didn't exist before. What you feel and what you do no longer constantly conflict. Decisions start to come from a more honest place. This reduces internal tension. Anxiety loses its strength, not because challenges disappear, but because you stop dividing yourself internally. You learn to recognize what nourishes you and what drains you. You learn to say yes to what makes sense, and to step back from what drains your energy. Silence stops being uncomfortable and becomes necessary. Depth becomes more attractive than distraction. The superficial loses space, not because of rejection, but because it no longer resonates with who you have become. This return to truth does not pull you away from the world. It improves your way of relating to it. Connections become more conscious. Fewer in number, but more meaningful. You recognize people with whom there is real exchange, presence, and mutual respect. It's not about quantity, it's about the quality of the bond. Throughout this journey, something important became clear. You were never broken, lost, or completely disconnected. What happened was a gradual distancing from your own essence, caused by adaptation, survival, and repetition. This happens to everyone, but not everyone stops to notice. The chosen ones notice, they feel, they question, and at some point, they decide to listen. Remembrance does not arise as a magical event that changes everything at once. It appears discreetly in sensations, discomforts, and different choices. You begin to notice yourself being more attentive to what you feel, less willing to deceive yourself. Life continues to be demanding, but something inside of you becomes firmer. This firmness does not come from control, it comes from recognition. You understood that crises were not enemies. They made space. They broke down structures that no longer supported who you were becoming. Every discomfort brought a necessary question. Every fall removed a layer that was not yours. None of this was wasted. Everything contributed to bringing you to a point of greater clarity. Little by little, you stopped seeking answers outside that could only arise from within. This did not isolate you from the world. It simply placed you in a more conscious position within it. You began to notice patterns, respect boundaries, choose with more intention. Life did not become perfect, but it became truer, and that changes everything. The chosen ones do not awaken to feel special. They awaken to live with responsibility. They understand that each choice creates consequences, that each internal state influences the path. This awareness does not weigh, it liberates. You stop feeling like a victim of circumstances and start recognizing yourself as an active participant in your own experience. You also realize that you don't need to convince anyone. Each person is at a different point on the path. Some are still asleep, others are beginning to wake up. Some are already walking with clarity. Respecting this is part of the maturity of awakening. Your task is not to save, it is to live with coherence. When you live with coherence, your presence speaks louder than any discourse. Your choices reflect alignment. Your way of being in the world changes, and this silently influences everything around you. Not by imposition, but by resonance. What is true recognizes itself effortlessly. Remembrance continues to deepen. There is no final point. Each phase of life reveals new layers. New learnings emerge, new challenges arise. But now you go through all of this with more awareness of yourself. You know where you're starting from. And this brings stability, even amid the changes. Being a chosen one is not about carrying a title. It is about sustaining a posture. It is not accepting an empty life. It is choosing presence over distraction. It is honoring what you feel, even when that requires courage. It is remembering every day that you are not here just to pass time, but to live with meaning. If you've made it this far, something in you has already recognized this truth. Now, I want to hear from you. Which part of this content resonated most with your experience? Was it the feeling of not belonging, the crises, the signs, or the process of remembering who you are? Leave your comment sharing what made the most sense to you. Your reflection may help other chosen ones recognize themselves as well.